We are astronauts, we see the stars. We are astronauts from far away. We are astronauts on Mama Earth. We are astronauts, you look so great. We are astronauts, we fly around. We are astronauts, the moon today. We are astronauts, we love the sun. We are astronauts, and we will say we are climate astronauts. Whoa, we are climate astronauts. Whoa.
Welcome back to Global Village. I'm Buddy Curan. Tonight's topic is COP23 and the Manila Declaration. Joining me still are two very resourceful guests. Mr. Ray Gurin, he is the climate finance specialist, and Mr. Roberto Versola, and he is the president of CREST, the Center for Renewable Energy and Sustainable Technology. Now, nice video again showing COP23, and I understand you're going to be part of the Philippine delegation, Mr. Gurin. Now, I just want to talk about what you mentioned, Mr. Versola, earlier, that we talked about this Manila Declaration being achievable, being doable, 70% of reduction in total fossil fuel use, using that business as usual projection to bring it down to 2012 levels. Now, my question for you is this. I mean, how confident are you that we can do this, given the fact that, as you mentioned, even from 2012 levels, the level today is so much higher because the demand, I mean, we have an economy that's growing exponentially. And there's something like 30,000, 40,000 new vehicles on the road every month. And this is all being driven by this booming population and people entering the workforce. How do you account for this? How do you bring it down now to 2012 levels?
Well, to bring down from 2016 down to 2012 level, it basically means we have to reduce our fossil fuel consumption by roughly 2% per year. And I've worked out the numbers for the energy sector. I'm not talking about the transportation, but for the energy sector, 2% per year is doable in the sense that actually coal plants last for 25 years. So if you let the coal plants naturally, if you don't build new coal plants and then you let just them phase out as soon as they reach
and you
their
phase in the renewables,
that's roughly 4% a year reduction. 1 in 25 years means 1 over 25 is 4% per year. And we are only after a 2% per year reduction. So that leaves us still some room to build 1 or 2 or 3 coal plants here and there as needed, but we can do that 2% easily because, as I said, the natural attrition rate for coal plants is 4%.
What about in the transport sector, which is huge?
For the transport sector, now, electric vehicles are going mainstream in the developed countries. They're talking of, let's say, shifting to fully electric by 2030 or some such targets. Now, once it happens, it will happen very quickly because electric vehicles only have a few hundred moving parts, while internal combustion engines have thousands of moving parts. So on issue of maintenance alone, they will be much cheaper to maintain than internal combustion engines. So it's just a matter of the technology being able to meet the demand for electric. And the demand has shut up, by the way.
And becoming economically viable.
Yes,
because
of
electrics today are still expensive. It's only rich people.
I mean, of course, always, new technology has to target first that high-end market.
Yes.
And then as the high-end market buys in, then economies of scale kick in, and then the prices come down. You see that in electronics all the time.
And in solar, it's happening.
Yes, and in fact, a German expert has told us, they had a meeting at the UP, that the transport industry wants electric vehicles. It will be an extension of the energy, the power industry, because it will be like other appliances run by electricity, which means that it will be able to take advantage of the same kind of economies of scale that we see today in electronics and in solar power, etc. So yes, that gives me a lot of confidence that it will happen quickly once the triggers are there.
Well, I hope they make cheaper Teslas. I'd like to buy one.
Soon.
Soon.
For example, Powerwall is the same kind of technology used for the batteries that Teslas use. Batteries are coming down in price 22% per year, coming down in price. So that means that when the economies of scale of volume kick in, you will see very quickly a rapid decline in prices.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Brizola. Mr. Gordon, you are going to be a delegate, official Philippine delegation
Yes.
to COP23. Quickly, what is COP all about? I mean, why is it called Conference of Parties? And why this is the 23rd in 23 years it's been running. Give us a little background on COP.
Yeah, conference of parties. No? So essentially, it's a gathering of countries, civil society organizations, NGOs, private sector, financial institutions. They come together essentially how to address this issue of global warming. So they try, and right now the focus is on the Paris Agreement. How do they implement the Paris Agreement amongst all countries? No? And how do they, for example, access climate finance to support the implementation of these Paris Agreement in each and every one of these countries. No? So essentially, in a nutshell, that could be the essence of COP23 right now. So, and how to bring in the private sector to participate in the issues of
Absolutely.
climate change. Because before it has always been like government-led, but you know, money is scarce. So you need private sector to come in to address that because it also affects them.
And it's not just about finding the money for projects. It's also private sector changing the way they do business. No, I mean, it's so important.
Precisely. That's why there is a need to mainstream or make the private sector aware how climate would impact their bottom line. I know, for example, in one of the projects that I'm working at, say, in Pakistan, when the drought hits them, for example, their portfolio in agriculture, they got hit. So they made provisions for like 5%. So that is a cost to a bank. So it is a real thing. Yeah, you don't have to go further, no? Like Yolanda, right? So what do I do in COP? Well, one of the roles that I'll be doing is obviously, I think, technical advisory, mainly on the climate finance side. I'll be providing support on the discussions on loss and damage mechanism behind the scenes, and attracting investors to support climate initiatives in Philippines. I'll be supporting the Manila Declaration if, as needed, if they have that side event there, and yeah, and essentially that. So
How is the delegation going to push the Manila Declaration? I mean, in what fora, in what venue?
the Manila Declaration will be under a CSO event. So I think that's still being finalized now because I think it's a very competitive situation right now because everyone wants to be presenting in the COP now. So I'm not sure as to the status of the slot for that event. But definitely that is one of those things on the table. For
Mr.
them.
Versola?
Yeah, well, I want to say that the two approaches to climate change adaptation mitigation is that first you ask governments to do things about it, and the other is the market will also do something about it. And today, in the case of, let's say, solar and wind, increasingly they are market driven, meaning that their costs have become so low, especially solar, that even if the government did not subsidize these technologies, they are already moving forward on the basis of market forces. And the problem really for governments today is more about removing barriers that still exist against solar and wind and other renewables. And
Yes,
there
I
are
mean,
a lot of barriers.
I was going to
still.
ask you about that because it really does sound like a very ideal situation. We introduce renewables, they come down in price a lot. They're now in reach,
Yes.
in the reach of ordinary people. No? Unlike before, when you had to be a very rich man to have a solar power assisted home. No?
Well,
What are the barriers? What is preventing it from going the next level?
The one important barrier is the high initial cost. It's like buying a house. It is cheaper to have your own house rather than rent an apartment if you look at it long term. So you need financing to enable less less rich people who cannot afford to buy a house, so that they can buy one on through financing and then just pay the amortization, and they will pay less than a monthly rent.
And this is something I want to see in the Philippines. You know,
Yeah.
countries like Germany, you go to Scandinavia, I
Yeah.
think even the US, if you want to have this kind of technology in your home, they
Yes.
actually give you tax breaks.
Right.
And you know, so it will
Yes.
offset the cost of at least help the homeowner.
So one thing that is needed today,
Yeah.
let's say in the case of solar, if you want to put up solar in your or rooftop, is easier financing that will allow the lower income people to be able to get the technology and then pay monthly amortizations at a price lower than they would pay if they were to buy the electricity.
Are there
from
initiatives
the
like this being started in the Philippines or
increasingly,
talks?
yes, it's slow, but we're coming
Gorin?
there.
Yeah, interestingly, yes. No, you know, we need to have what you
Sounds
call
very utopian
No, no, this
for the
is-
Philippines.
Yeah, no, this
There
is
you go.
real, no, because the banks, the way we've accessed finance is based on traditional methods, no, interest rates, interest-bearing rates. No. Do you know that we have we're one of the countries that has an Islamic bank, Al Amana Islamic Investment Bank, and their operation, and that is a game changer in this field because they don't charge you interest rates because it's not allowed.
Yes, yes.
So it literally
Yes.
can bring down the rates, no, and that could support these types of initiatives on mitigation or even adaptation related type of activities, no, because it is the Islamic financing is aligned with climate related activities, no?
But on the government side, what about tax breaks? I think that's a hell of a good incentive, right? If someone were, do you gentlemen see anything being proffered now in Congress or the Senate to that
Well,
effect?
knowing the attitude of the finance department, they're always very worried about extending that. But actually, the law says that there are a number of tax incentives for renewable energy. But then here comes many industry people saying that we are not able to take advantage of this tax rate. It's very difficult. There's a lot of bureaucratic
Yes,
red
it's something
tape
we can learn from the Germans, perhaps, in this how they do it in their own
Right,
countries. No?
right.
Gentlemen, we've come to end the show, and a topic like this with you two resource speakers goes by very fast. Quickly before we go, last words for viewers, Mr. Versola.
Well, I talked about the financing. The other necessary thing we should do is remove other barriers, like, for example, make it easy for solar owners to connect with minimum of fuss to the grid.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you're not connected to the grid, you end up wasting a lot of the solar energy that you generate when there's too much sun. And then you still have to buy electricity in the evening. But
Can
if you
offset your costs,
exchange,
yeah.
if you can offset
Yes.
your surplus with, let's say, your evening consumption, that will even make it, the ROI for solar will even be much better.
Very good. Mr. Guerin?
Okay. At least, definitely, no, as mentioned a while ago, there is a need to strengthen or increase the awareness on the issues of climate mitigation and adaptation. No? And we've seen that as a barrier amongst institutions. No? That's why when we did this program, the Climate Smart Network, which is a transfer mechanism or sustainable mechanism of the UNEP Climate Smart Roadmap, we can offer these services to these institutions. No? Example, we can help DNR, the NDA, screen climate finance projects pro bono, because we just want to get it moving. No? So this is what this is what you call our advocacy. So we can provide that advisory and awareness component for these guys. No? So it's doable. It's easy.
Very good. I admire optimism, gentlemen. Keep it up. We need a lot of that. So thank you very much, Mr. Versola, and of course, Mr. Guerin. Good luck to you and your team in Bonn, Germany, in about 15 days. Huh? Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. In a few moments, guys, stick around because joining us is another climate change and environment advocate, Cesar Guidote Alvarez, who's going to be presenting to us the cultural aspect of changing hearts and minds to solve the problem of global warming. So, guys, stick around.